1 year ago, on October 7th, 2023, Hamas launched a large-scale attack on Israel. It was a sudden and brutal escalation in a conflict that has spanned for decades. For Israel, it was a day of shock and devastation. A massacre of innocent people attending a music festival. And for many Palestinians, after years of blockade and occupation, it foreshadowed more suffering to come. Israel's response was swift. A major ground invasion of the Gaza Strip was launched at the end of October. But the violence quickly spread beyond the troubled enclave. Hezbollah, a powerful militant group and political force based in Lebanon, backed by Iran, stepped up its activity along the Israel-Lebanon border. Iran's influence became more visible, supporting both Hamas and Hezbollah. Now, 1 year later, tensions are dangerously high. Israel is facing threats on multiple fronts. And as we look back on that pivotal day, one question stands out. How close are we to a full-scale regional war? In this video, we'll break down what changed over the past year, the roles of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, and where the conflict might be heading.
We will respond wherever, whenever, and however we choose.
Since the war began, Israel and Hamas have been locked in a relentless but largely one-sided struggle. Hamas's initial October 7th attack was unprecedented. Gunmen stormed southern Israel, killing over 1,200 people and taking more than 200 hostages, shocking the world. In response, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared war and imposed a full blockade on Gaza, cutting off vital supplies. The Gaza Strip has since faced one of the most ruthless military campaigns in its history, with airstrikes wiping out entire neighborhoods, hospitals, and schools. The numbers speak for themselves. Nearly 43,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the war began, according to local authorities, most of them civilians. While the humanitarian crisis has deepened, there have been occasional breakthroughs in negotiations. A deal brokered in late November saw 50 hostages exchanged for 150 Palestinian prisoners. However, Hamas has stated it won't engage in further talks while the war rages. Months of warfare inside the Strip has seen the group's infamous tunnel network systematically dismantled. Much of the group's leadership structure and military capabilities has now been destroyed by the IDF operations. Although its leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, remains on the loose. He is reportedly the mastermind behind the October 7th attacks and is now the IDF's #1 target.
Yahya Sinwar is an archi-terrorist responsible for one of the most horrible terror acts in history, the 7th of October.
Israel has vowed to wipe out the organization top to bottom, and is unwilling to agree on a political solution that leaves Hamas in charge in Gaza. An estimated 97 people taken hostage on October 7th have still not been returned, though it is feared a large number of them are still no longer alive. The Israeli government continues to face intense pressure to bring them home. This brings us to a key player in the region, Iran. 1 year on, Iran's role in the conflict is clearer than ever. For years it's been backing groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, forming what they call their axis of resistance. This network spans the Middle East, from Iraq to Yemen. It also allows Iran to exert influence without direct involvement in fighting. By supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and others, Iran was able to hit back at Israel indirectly, all while maintaining a degree of deniability. But Israeli aggression has forced Iran to take more direct action. Strikes against an Iranian diplomatic building in Syria and the assassination of Hamas's political leader in Tehran led to retaliation in the form of a major missile and drone strike in April. Last week, following the killing of Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah, Iran launched another major attack against Israel. This one involving 180 ballistic missiles. Crucially, both US and UK forces have been involved in intercepting these attacks.
It cannot be tolerated. We stand with Israel and we recognize her right to self-defense.
Iran is a destabilizing, dangerous force in the Middle East, and today's attack on Israel only further demonstrates that fact.
All sides must make careful calculation on how they proceed. But if Iran were to declare war on Israel, the USA may be forced to act as well. Hezbollah, an Islamist political party and militant group within Lebanon, is now playing a major role in the conflict. The group wasted no time getting involved in the fighting after the October 7th attacks. Just a day later, they launched strikes against Israeli military positions near the Lebanese border, claiming it was an act of solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. This initiated almost daily exchanges of fire, with both sides causing damage to military and civilian sites over the following months. The death toll in Lebanon has been severe, with reports of hundreds killed in Israeli strikes and many injured from Hezbollah's rocket fires in northern Israeli towns. Then, in September, tensions escalated dramatically following an unprecedented security breach for the militant group. Israel's Mossad spy agency planted explosives inside 5,000 Taiwan-made pages that Hezbollah ordered months ago. On September 17th, these pages detonated almost simultaneously across Lebanon. The blast killed 9 people and wounded nearly 3,000 others, including members of Hezbollah and Iran's ambassador to Beirut. And last week, Israel announced its first ground invasion of Lebanon in almost 2 decades, launching limited localized raids on Hezbollah targets.
We have no choice but to do it ourselves. I want to make it clear. Our war is with Hezbollah, not with the people of Lebanon.
In fact, the IDF has already been operating covertly inside southern Lebanon for months. This has sparked fears of a broader campaign against the group, echoing the intense conflict from 2006. Fighting is now taking place on the ground, with the IDF announcing its first casualties shortly after crossing the border. Whether this offensive would genuinely be limited in scope or involve a more open-ended occupation remains to be seen. So, as we mark 1 year since the conflict began, the stakes have never been higher. What began as a long dispute between Hamas and Israel has evolved into a wider regional struggle. This involves Hezbollah, Iran, and other Iranian-backed groups like the Houthis in Yemen. The international community watches nervously as the situation remains unstable.
We, the 10 elected members of the Security Council, are deeply concerned about the escalation of tensions in the Middle East. We condemn the current cycle of violence and call for an immediate end to all hostilities.
Attempts at peace negotiations have faltered, leaving both sides entrenched in their positions.
Yet Israel has been tolerating this intolerable situation for nearly a year. Well, I've come here today to say enough is enough.
With Iran's support for various militant groups, any strike against one faction, be it Hamas or Hezbollah, could spark a wider retaliation. There's also the looming question of US and Western involvement. The United States has been a close ally of Israel, providing both military and diplomatic support throughout the conflict. But as tensions rise with Iran, the potential for a broader conflict involving American forces grows. In the coming year, we may face one of two outcomes. Either ongoing, sporadic clashes that continue to cause suffering for both sides, or a significant regional war that could draw in Israel, Iran, Hezbollah, and potentially other international powers. But one thing is for sure, the situation in the Middle East remains one of the most volatile and dangerous flashpoints in the world today.